Hello and welcome to Salty About Health. My name is Dalaney Algier, and I'm here with my mom and co-host, Mary. So, Mom, why are we salty about health?
Good question. It's because both of us have had struggles, some more serious than others, and no one showed us simple ways we could jump into the driver's seat and take control.
And why are we sharing our views with our listeners?
Well, because we want our listeners to realize that it may take time, but with some simple knowledge about health, they'll be able to make a few changes and dig deeper to take control of their well being and live a more vibrant life.
That's fantastic. But right now, before we get into all of that, we just need to do some housekeeping. Here we go. This is an opinion-based podcast. This is not in any way offered as a diagnosis or treatment for any disease, illness, or infirmity for physical or mental condition or any other condition you may have. We are not doctors or practitioners of any kind. Persons needing medical care should obtain it from a medical practitioner. So, consult your practitioner before making any health decision. The opinions offered here in this podcast are ours alone. Again, we're not doctors, and the banter you're going to be listening to is our view and our view alone. Okay, that's done. We, of course, also want to have an open dialogue with our listeners. So stay tuned to the end of the episode, and we'll let you know all of the ways that we can connect. Hey everyone, welcome to episode number 9. Whoa, Mom is triggered today. You know, she has to figure out her health issues and is so tired of the quote experts not listening and giving everyone the same advice. The quote advice can work for many, but when someone is really sick and that advice is not working, it seems to us that practitioners want to label you as difficult and not work with you instead of digging deeper into your issues. So, today, my mom is going to give you some ideas to help you out and possibly look into if you feel things are just not working for you, even though you are following your doctor's advice. She assures me you aren't crazy and will give you other things to look into. Okay, here we go. Take it away, Mom.
Yeah, I'm a little pissy today because I'm sick of people giving their advice without letting you know that if it doesn't work, that doesn't mean you're not doing it correctly. There are a lot of underlying issues people have that just aren't looked into, and until you can identify those issues, a lot of things won't work.
Wait, so what do you mean by that?
Well, I picked up a book recently, and this was the doctor's advice. Basically, eat fresh vegetables and fruit, whole grains, except wheat, drink plenty of water, freshly squeezed juices, drink rice, almond or sesame milk, eat nuts and seeds, add fresh herbs, drink herbal and green teas, eat responsibly sourced meats.
Well, that sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
When I wasn't doing well, I know a whole food diet helped me, that's for sure. But then I started mowing down on all the superfoods, and things weren't going all that great. I was thinking to myself, why am I feeling sicker when I'm eating a great diet and adding in all the superfoods everyone is telling me to eat? Honestly, I thought I was going insane. And of course, the doctors labeled me as depressed and wanted to give me an antidepressant and send me on my way. I knew I wasn't depressed. I mean, after all, I graduated with honors with a degree in psychology. LOL. So, with a lot of digging, I realized I had an infected root canal that was destroying my health. And even though I got it removed, I believe that it will always be a reason for some of my health issues. But that is another episode. With more research, I found that a lot of people can't eat certain foods we consider healthy because of underlying issues. I learned what's healthy for one person may not be healthy for you. So let's go back to what the doctor's advice was. fresh fruits, and this is just one example, and we love fruit, but some people are actually fructose sensitive. Dalaney, do you like fruit?
I do, but I think we've talked about this on other episodes. Some fruit doesn't like me, like watermelon, any melons.
What do they do to you?
Melons give me a headache. I just don't want to deal with that. And some fruit makes me gassy if we're getting completely into, super into this.
Oh,
So
yay.
that's not fun either. And it's funny because my favorite has always been berries. And as we've talked about, they have the lowest, fructose level, right? So I think that's why I like them the most, is because they don't do those weird things to me.
Well, see, you may fall into one of these categories.
Yeah.
There are 3 different types of fructose intolerance. And fructose malabsorption is a type of food sensitivity that affects 40% of those in the Western Hemisphere.
That is ridiculous. And so many people.
Yeah, and I had no idea, I mean, I used to eat apricots a lot. We had an apricot tree when I was young, but I think I like pineapple, but I was never a big fruit eater.
Okay.
And I know I don't do well with some. I just don't. I stick more with vegetables. But on our last episode, we found that cucumbers are fruit, so I am eating fruit.
Oh my gosh. And I was bad as a kid because I like fruit, but probably the same as you. What I liked it in different forms. So like I liked fruity flavored candy, which probably is not actually. So I like the flavor, but the actual fruits I could take or leave sometimes.
I think now they're starting to add more of the natural, actually fruit flavor into them, where before I think it was just chemicals.
Yeah.
Yeah, food chemists just kind of made it taste like grape.
Oh my gosh, no, grape flavor and blue raspberry flavor are just made up flavors. They don't they tell me what fruit those actually taste like.
But they taste kind of good,
They taste
the
good, but it's just some
fake grape.
random, it's purple and blue. That's what they taste like. It's just like so there's no such thing as a
Okay.
blue raspberry. And if you actually eat a raspberry, it does not taste like, like a blue raspberry, Sour Patch Kid or something. Anyways.
Okay, so as with other food sensitivities, a combination of genetics, lifestyle factors, exposure to fructose, and overall health may play a part in causing your fructose malabsorption. People with fructose malabsorption cannot properly absorb or digest fructose. As a result, fructose passes into the large intestines, causing gas and painful digestion.
Boom. See, I didn't even know that till you just said it. That's me.
Yeah. Some people with fructose malabsorption have sensitivities to a group of foods that include, and I'll try to say this, fermentable, oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols, which is a FODMAP diet. And you can look that up on the internet, and I'm pretty sure I did link it into the show notes. But FODMAPs include, which is FODMAP with a small s, FODMAPs include many types of both natural and artificial sweeteners. And these people do much better when you take those foods out. And I think I'm guessing onions are one, as I remember, but I'm not sure. But it is a strict diet, but there's plenty of information on the internet to tell you what foods to eat and what not to eat. Then we have essential fructosuria or hepatic fructokinase deficiency. And it's a harmless recessive disorder that a person may have without being aware of it. People with essential fructosuria lack a liver enzyme that can break down fructose, and it is not harmful, and people with this condition are typically asymptomatic and do not need treatment.
Okay. But if they are symptomatic, do we know what the symptoms are?
That I don't know, but I assume it would be like we were talking about the fructose malabsorption. But it actually, if it involves the liver, it can be more serious. But the next one talks about hereditary fructose intolerance. So if you have that, it is a serious type of intolerance. And however, it is treatable and manageable. And that occurs when a person is unable to digest neither fructose nor fructose precursors, such as brown sugar. So the fructose then accumulates in liver and kidneys, causing serious and potential fatal complications such as liver and kidney failure. But this is something you would figure out when you were young. So to go back to your question, if it was that serious, you would have figured it out when you were younger and you would
Right.
be on a special diet.
Yeah, like I don't think I definitely don't have that issue.
No, but you are sensitive too. So you
Yes.
may just be lacking some enzymes to digest fructose. And I'm sure there are some things you can buy if you really want to do that. I know when I had my 23andMe done, they told me I was lacking enzyme to digest fat. So I get like lipase, things like that,
Mm-hmm.
off the internet. So when I eat, I'll take those. So that's just an example of what most doctors are not looking for.
Mm-hmm.
You have all of these symptoms like bloating and diarrhea, and you have no idea. And the doctor will most likely give you a prescription to manage the symptoms, which
Yeah.
is easy.
Yeah.
You can manage your diarrhea or your bloating, but there are always underlying causes. Let's talk about histamine sensitivity and mast cell disorder, which is an issue I have. And I just got over a horrible migraine due to eating something that was very high histamine. And I didn't realize that, but now I do.
Okay.
And so, histamine, and it makes perfect sense why I kept getting sicker, because a lot of your superfoods are very high histamine. I was adding apple cider vinegar, fermented foods, mushrooms, cocoa, cinnamon to my diet and getting sicker and sicker. And I don't know, Dalaney, if you've ever looked at any of those sites and, you talk about superfoods and eating cacao and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, a little bit, and it's like mostly you see at the store the nutrition bars and this and that. They're like, oh, like packed with superfoods because we have cacao, and it's yeah.
Well, they're just also just the foods, the dark chocolate and eating mushrooms and fermented foods. And,
Mm-hmm.
and we were talking the goji berries, the
Yeah.
last episode, which is actually nightshade. And ashwagandha seems to be on everybody's radar nowadays. And that's an herb and that's a nightshade. So we really need to know what we're putting in our body. And if we got to figure it out. Like for me, why am I getting sicker and sicker eating all the superfoods and buying all these books? If you want to be healthy, this and that. Well, I didn't know I had an underlying histamine issue.
Right.
So that was no fun. So when I started looking into it, I figured it out actually by going to a naturopath and doing an oat test, which is an organic acid test, and things like that. And they can kind of tell what your issues are. But there can be underlying issues a lot of time, and we will have to do an episode on leaky gut, because a lot of these issues you can control by getting your gut in check. So sometimes and sometimes it's more of a methylation cycle or genetic, anything like that. So you just don't know. So unless you start
Mm-hmm.
taking those kind of tests, you're not going to know. So here are some histamine stimulating foods: avocado, which I try to eat every day, but can't anymore. Definitely spinach, strawberries, shellfish, tree nuts, and peanuts. I mean, I have to have a really low load of histamine to even be able to eat anything like that. And this is not an all-inclusive list, but you get the gist. And I grabbed a link and put it in the show notes about histamine intolerance. And there is also mast cell activation syndrome, and it can be triggered by strong scents like perfume, bug bites, stress, etc. And a lot of time that is treated with antihistamines, but I'm not going to get into that right now.
Okay.
But also, I think, have you ever had issues with strong scents?
Not. as bad as some people, because I know I've just, going to school, public school over the years, there's been times when someone in my class is like allergic or sensitive to perfume. So they ask the class at the beginning of the year to like not wear stuff. It mostly in confined places, it'll get to me like on the plane if someone sits next to me on an airplane with the recycled air and they have like perfume, it just kills me if it's super strong. But I don't think I'm really sensitive to that.
Yeah, and it can be really nauseating for some, and sometimes that's a candida issue that the
Oh,
person has.
interesting.
So if you have,
Okay.
yeah, if you have yeast overgrowth or chemical sensitivities, things like that, again, that would be dysbiosis. So there are different reasons,
Mm-hmm.
but just so everybody knows that they're not crazy, and going to more of a whole food diet and watching, journaling, so you know what food you're putting in case they do make you sicker.
Yeah. Or like the bug bite thing, because you are very sensitive to bug bites. And even if it's like an ant or this or that, it's just your body blows up from it.
Yeah, that's a genetic thing. So that's histamine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have my genetics to deal with on that one. And I always have been. I was always the kid that got stung by a bee, and
Oh my gosh.
oh my gosh.
Oh, the best is she was on her way to take a family picture and there was a bee in her car and it stung her like in the face, right? Which is terrifying. I would have crashed and died. I can't believe you like survived. Like I just wouldn't have made it to the family picture because I would have crashed my car into a ravine trying to kill the bee.
Oh, I pulled over and I killed it. I was so pissed off.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But it stung you and then your whole face, well, half your
Whole
face.
right side of my face. I didn't even want to go to work. I remember I was so embarrassed. So in the picture, I'm looking off. So you can't see the right side of my face.
That's great.
Um,
Anyways,
and then I tried to wear
the
your
eye
grandmother
patch.
got me an eye patch for work, and I couldn't do it. I was just too, it was, I was very young, like 16 or something. So it was traumatic back then. So I remember the first time you got stung, we were living in Arizona, and we
we
were
were
riding
we were on
horses,
a
and
horse. We had our horses. We were riding, and of course, so I was just always been scared of bees, and we had to go under this one tree where you could like hear the bees like a mile away. You could, like the whole tree just hummed, but mom and dad were like, "Let's go under it." So I got stung. But then luckily I have dad's genes and nothing bad happened. I was just traumatized.
yes, I was scared to death. So I said, we need to get you back to the house, because if you were like me,
Mm-hmm.
then it would have, you would have really had a hard time. But you cried and you acted like it hurt, and you couldn't even see. There was nothing.
It was
There
traumatic,
was no
okay?
swelling, no nothing. But I do remember my aunt on my dad's side, she would never eat outside picnics because she was allergic to bees.
Oh wow. That's yeah,
So,
if you're like super allergic like that, I get it.
but I didn't know how you would react. So I was a little nervous, but yeah, now you just whine and I'm like, oh, please. I get bit by a fire ant and it's like a week and a half. My leg is swollen, and most people it hurts, but it's no big deal. Okay, so let's talk real quick about oxalates. Huge issue for people with kidney stones, and they also put children with autism on low oxalate diets with really good outcomes. Again, we will have an episode just on this subject, but want to let the listeners know that some healthy foods can wreak havoc on some. And here are some high oxalate foods. Potatoes. We were just talking about potatoes in the
Poor
last episode.
potatoes.
I know they're getting a bad rap, but
I
if you
know.
actually look at the nutritional content, other than they're a nightshade and they have high oxalates. Anyway, rhubarb, okra, leeks, spinach, beets, Swiss chard. I know when I eat Swiss chard, I just bounce off the walls. Really high oxalate foods would be almonds, cashews, peanuts, soy products, and then you have bran flakes, wheat germ, quinoa, chocolate, cacao, tea. A black tea is really bad for people with kidney
Wow.
stones. I
Huh.
work with someone who's got kidney stones and they drink tea all the time.
Oops. Well, did they, is like green tea or white tea better?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
I would assume that I don't know. I would assume they all have oxalates, but black tea is very high in them.
Okay.
And it may seem that many foods contain oxalate. However, this does not mean that every food needs to be avoided. And with careful planning and a balanced diet with proper portion sizes, you can enjoy oxalate containing foods. It's best to consult your doctor or dietitian to go over what you can and cannot consume to fit your needs. And just to know, dairy has no oxalates. So, yeah, you can't avoid oxalates altogether. But with people who have issues, especially kidney stones or autism, they know there are sites you can go to that have the amount of oxalates in a food, and they avoid those and they just eat the lower ones. Like I think bok choy is somewhat low. You'll get people who do these green smoothies. They're going to go on this health kick and they'll do green smoothies with raw spinach and kale, and then they have kidney issues in
Ooh.
a few months or a year. And you shouldn't. I don't believe you should be doing the same thing every day.
Oh, for food? Yeah, I just don't like routine anyways, but what, there's like the saying, like too much of a good thing can still be bad.
Exactly. The dose, the poison is in the dose. So
Yeah.
you can eat oxalate foods, but if you eat spinach all day for a week, and you're gonna feel it if you have issues with oxalates. You would just love. I was watching PBS the other day, and they did a tour of New Zealand, one of your favorite places, and
Yes.
they said they didn't find a bad restaurant or dish in the whole on the whole continent.
Yes. Oh my
And
gosh.
they showed pictures. Oh my gosh, it looks so great.
And it is so great. Oh, okay. So my favorite experience, and I went there a few years ago after college, and the best was we went to the rainforest north of Auckland. And it's pretty crazy because I love how they just take care of their country. I mean, it's convenient because they are an island and they can control it with people coming in and everything. But down to the point where before you walk into the rainforest, you have to wipe. They have little stations at all the trailheads where you wipe down the bottom of your shoes and stuff so you don't bring in foreign soil and everything. So it keeps it. But we went there, and then this lady, she was Maori, which was really cool. She was showing us around, and she gave us manuka honey as we sat there staring at a manuka bush in the middle of the rainforest, and it was amazing. It was so cool.
Yeah, I definitely I want to go visit because
Yeah,
it looks so awesome.
it's so cool.
Okay, so my point with all of this is everyone wants to give good advice and tell you how to eat, which is a good thing. I think we can all agree that highly processed carb foods and sugar foods should be eaten sparingly. But if you've switched to green smoothies every morning and eating lots of nuts and not feeling that great, you may want to think out of the box a little. So, my point is again, just because something is healthy, it may not be healthy for you because you may not realize you have an underlying condition or conditions that are creating havoc on your system.
Yeah, and that can be really frustrating because I think we've tried different like quote unquote healthy things and then both felt like crap, and it's like, but why? I'm supposed to be getting better. So with all this depressingness, what can the listeners do about it?
Yeah. So, what do you do when you're not feeling that great but eating well? Again, there could be lots of issues why this is happening. So I tell people to start a very detailed food log. And food sensitivities can show up immediately or up to 48 hours after you've eaten a food. And so a food log is very helpful, and you may start noticing a pattern.
The 48-hour thing, because a lot of people are like, oh, like your digestion system works too quickly. Like, why do you think something you ate like a day or two ago is affecting you? So it was really helpful to me to learn kind of the science behind it where it can affect you, because I was thinking like, oh well, it couldn't be that then because I already digested that, but it does have the long-term effects. So becoming aware of that helped me
That's huge. Yeah. A good example is when I first started getting into this. I remember reading a story of a lady whose her son or daughter, who was very young, had awful issues. I don't know. It was could be digestive or migraines or throwing up. And she couldn't figure out what it was until she started doing a food log and realized that 2 days after the child ate chicken nuggets, because they sprayed some kind of chemical or there was something on them, they're treated with something, and this is I'm sure they've cleaned up all the food now, but there was something put in the chicken nuggets that made this child react, and it took 2 days.
Wow.
So she just finally figured it out and took that out. So you have no idea. I mean, histamine for me, when I ate that, I can tell right away, but it's a slow build and there's nothing I can do about it. It's like this, slow train wreck. And I know I'm going to be down for 3 days. It starts, and then the second day is just awful. And then it starts dissipating the third day. And that was something tiny. It had yeast in it. It was, I forget what kind of yeast, a brewer's yeast, and just put me into a tailspin. So I should just pay more attention to what I'm putting in my mouth, I guess. So keeping a food journal, though monotonous, is an excellent way to figure things out and be your own health detective. An elimination diet may be an option for you. Cut back to a few foods for a week or so, and then start adding and see how you feel, and then start adding in different foods a little at a time. Again, not a doctor, so check with your practitioner. You can always start with top 10 foods people are allergic to and take those out of your diet. And that would be milk, eggs, peanuts, tree nuts, fish, shellfish, soy, wheat, tomatoes, and corn. Pretty much the standard American diet. And, food allergies can be subtle. So if you eat something and get a runny nose, that is a sign, as I tell your grandmother. So if all of a sudden, if you're one of those people like she was that always had Kleenex everywhere, and I was when I was young until I cleaned up my diet, and you just have that subtle kind of, runny nose, not, you know what I mean? It's very
like in the
subtle.
back of your throat.
Yeah,
Also,
the tickle. Yeah. And people, oh gosh, when people clear their throat all the time after they eat because it's the mucus, yeah, big sign. And if you stop eating something and your acne goes away, there's a sign. So an elimination diet, if you pay attention when you add things back, you may see the sign that your body is giving you. Also, I didn't mention this before, but nightshades, arthritis, a lot of people who take those out of their diet improve. So there are different tests that functional medicine practitioners know about that can be helpful, like a food sensitivity test. And you can order that online. I saw that they were having a special there, which is really good for quite a few foods. It's only a little over $100, because I know sometimes way back when they were charging like $1,000 for certain things. An oat test, which is an organic acid test, that's really a good test that measures a lot of markers. And a test for SIBO, which is small intestinal bowel overgrowth. So there's a lot of tests functional medicine doctors can give you, and sometimes they're worth it if you're having an issue and can't figure it out. And we'll go over these tests in other episodes. And the tests are informative, but ultimately, we want to know why, what the reason is. And so we want to know why you're reacting, and it could be what we already mentioned, or it could be things like leaky gut, candida overgrowth, heavy metals, etc. So which all can be, fixed, but people need to identify the problem first, and we'll cover all that in other episodes. So my point is, you have underlying issues keeping you from feeling your best, and that are not going to be found on a regular blood test. So you have to be your own health detective to figure some things out, which can seem impossible sometimes, but rewarding when you start on the journey.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing from this episode is you know yourself. And I don't know if anyone else experiences this when they do go to the doctors, but it's hard to articulate sometimes. And like when I had my sports induced asthma that we figured out was food related, I just needed a quick help to get through it while I was, about to go into collegiate sports. It was right before I studied. Yeah. So I just told them the symptoms that I knew would get me an inhaler. Like, and they didn't push or question or poke any further. They're just like, oh yeah, you have asthma. Here's your inhaler. So you have to do a lot of work yourself, but it helps because I got off the inhaler when I started looking at my food and my everything else, all my other lifestyle choices, and working on those, which I just didn't know how or didn't really want to articulate it to the doctor, because if you don't have a close relationship with them, it's weird. It's talking to a stranger about stuff. So,
But you shouldn't feel that way. You should tell your
yeah,
doctor everything.
you should.
But again, unless you go to a doctor who's going to think outside the box, they're just going to give you a prescription.
Yeah.
It's for the symptom. There's, that's what they look at. They're listening and they're hearing symptoms and they're giving you prescriptions to manage that. But if you go to more of a natural path, functional medicine kind of doctor, they're going to go, well, why does she have the asthma? What's the cause of it? And unfortunately, your insurance company doesn't necessarily cover those tests, like the organic acid test, the food sensitivity test. But sometimes they're not that expensive and you can get them online. In fact, I know you can order an oat test, the organic acid test online, and just have their doctors, interpret it for you, which is a good test, because even if you did a food sensitivity test, you still got to think, well, why am I sensitive to all these foods?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a leaky gut? So you may want to start on a whole food diet, try to fix a leaky gut and things like that, and then do an oat test and see if there's an underlying cause, like a high fungal or mold load in your body, high oxalates, things like that, because it'll show if you have high oxalates.
Yeah. And if you get to the like where you figure out it's fungus or mold, then you can be like, how is that getting into my body? And then that gets you into your environment. So you should be checking that as well. And apparently how you store your food and the environment your food's in.
Perfect.
Really, it's
Yes.
just blowing my mind. I never really thought about, and I'm just like, oh, I just store it. It's fine. But that matters too. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. But we don't want to scare everybody off, because once you start doing it, it's just becomes second nature and it's easy. And tastes as good as being healthy feels.
That's
So
cool. I like that
you
one.
can, yeah, I made that one up actually.
Oh, did you really?
I did. I made that one up because there is someone, it was a play on what someone else said. Oh, I think it's nothing tastes as good as thin feels. And I thought, well, that's wrong. So I thought nothing tastes as good as healthy feels.
There you go. That's
Because
better.
we're all
No body
different.
shaming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's true. When you add whole foods and whatever, you start getting healthy or finding out what's best for you. And that's what keeps you going, is feeling good.
Mm-hmm. So, anyways, the show notes will have links to some of the sites that Mom was talking about. And I'm probably going to go poke around on these. I haven't done like the oat test or anything like that. And you never know what you're going to find that just makes you think. So be your own health detective. Well, thanks everyone for listening. And again, we want to hear from you guys. We always want to hear from you guys. Please, please, please reach out to us. And here are just a few ways that you can do that. You can reach out via Instagram and Facebook. Find us at Salty About Health, even Snapchat at Salty Health. You can email us at saltyabouthealth@gmail.com. Or if you just want to find all that in one place, check out our website, saltyabouthealth.com. We've got all the ways for you to listen and connect there. And finally, if you like what you hear today, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. We really appreciate it. So, Mom, if they want to hear from you on social media, where can they find you?
Okay, I am a certified health coach and I do coach one-on-one. So if you're interested, you can contact me at mary@feedyourselfhealthy.com. I also do research for people who are interested in finding alternative approaches to do in conjunction with the health issue or illness their doctor is treating them for. So again, just reach out to me at mary@feedyourselfhealthy.com or follow me on Twitter at feedyourselfhealthy, which is spelled FeedYourselfHealthy. That's where they can find me.
Cool. Okay. And if you guys want to find me, I'm not a health coach, but I'm on Instagram hanging out there at Dalaney.a. Find out how to spell my name in the show notes and everything. And of course, I'll be the one mainly keeping an eye on the social media. So always happy to chat with you guys via the Salty Network. Also, just want to shout out our intro and outro music. It is by Yule, and you can find her at www.yulearts.com. That's EULARTS. You can also find her on Instagram at Yule_arts or Spotify and YouTube. Check her out. Her piano music and everything else is amazing. And until next time, stay salty.
Stay salty.